Hey there, folks. This will be the maiden voyage of my YouTube channel, where I'll occasionally talk about the random bullshit that I find interesting. Please forgive the sheer magnitude of pixels assaulting your eyes at the moment. I've never done this before, and editing software is expensive. So all I've got is MS Paint, Windows Movie Maker, and a pile of fucking dreams in my heart. Anyways, here goes nothing. I intended to do a video that was slightly more lighthearted than what I'm about to get into. I saw something earlier this week that really pissed me off enough to get off my ass and say something about it. We had another school shooting this week. With it, all the same assholes finger wagging at each other about gun control, mental health, social pressures, etc., etc., fucking etc. One thing I've noticed that comes out more and more when one of these shootings happens, and maybe it's because of the circles that I follow on social media or whatever, but it's to blame maleness or masculinity for the shooting. And every time I see it, I think to myself, how could you possibly let some nonsense bullshit like that fly out of your fucking mouth? Like, it's ridiculous. I've seen comments fly around here and there, and I've even engaged some people in argument from time to time about this, but it really just ends up with me and somebody else or two other people just talking past each other, and it doesn't really help anything. But one tweet in particular that caught my eye this time around, it sort of encompasses generally what all these things tend to really be saying. And the fact that at the time that I recorded this, the tweet had nearly 50,000 likes and 12,000 retweets. It makes it pretty fair to call it viral. And in my opinion, really speaks to the popularity of the sentiment. Um, Comedian Michael Ian Black tweeted out effectively that these shootings occur because, quote, deeper even than the gun problem is this: boys are broken. Holy fucking shit. My real question is how do you make that claim? How do you just claim that 50% of the entire fucking world's population is broken? Broken compared to what standard? Women? They have their own bullshit to deal with. Other males? I guess since they're all apparently broken, that's not a real standard to go by. So what is it? What is the basis for this claim? Well, Black gives us an explanation, so we're going to take a look at it. And in my opinion, it better be damn fucking compelling to convince me that myself, my friends, my sons are just inherently broken for having dicks. Uh, Next tweet down, Black says, quote, until we fix men, we need to fix the gun problem. And that's cool, you know, he's a celebrity, he's got to get his plug in for gun control somewhere, but how are boys broken? Quote, the last 50 years redefined womanhood. Women were taught that they can be anything. No commensurate movement for men who are still generally locked into the same rigid, outdated model of masculinity. And it's killing us. I kind of agree with the initial premise, although I wouldn't say womanhood was redefined per se, but rather women found a wider breadth of opportunities available to them than they enjoyed in the past. As to the quote, commensurate movement for men, I would greatly refer you to the story of Cassie J and other men's rights efforts that are continually torn apart, deplatformed, and destroyed. There are people out there trying to help men with these issues, and they have an incredible amount of backlash, particularly from radical feminist movements. The men's rights movement exists, and it is true that conversations, when you're dealing with MRAs, is they often devolve into woman hating, anti feminism in a really negative way, not in a constructive way. Um, it's not good, but these men are relatively angry, and overall, I feel like the key aims of the movement hold up, and they hold up just as well as the ideals of feminism. Bottom line is that between men and women, it's not a competition, and shit is just rough all over for everybody. We all got our own bullshit. So what else you got for us, Black? Quote, if you want to hurt a man, the first thing you do is attack his masculinity. Men don't have the language to understand masculinity as anything other than some version of a caveman because no language exists. If I'm reading this right, this looks to me like the fragile ego trope. The old men are animals story all rolled into one little case. If that's the case, Michael Ian Black, then what credentials do you, as a man, have to tell anyone anything about masculinity? You clearly could not possibly understand the language, caveman. I mean, I tell you guys, this can't be a serious fucking statement. Black, are you so fucking woke, quote unquote, that you are somehow more enlightened than the rest of us? Just broken fucking men? Why not share the golden tablets with the rest of the class, dude? I'll fucking wait. Or better yet, how about we get a woman in here to tell us how men really are? Because evidently they do have the language, I guess. It's the only group left. I mean, in my opinion, men don't behave or respond this way as a group. Some individual men do. Most men laugh off a challenge to their masculinity because they're not fucking emotionally weak. Men who get upset over this shit are typically just weak emotionally. And there are reasons for that I'm not going to get into. But let's get real. Shit like this is why the toxic part of toxic masculinity is so misunderstood. And why male feminists are constantly perceived as self-hating, low-T, fucking cuckolded beta males. And that is a stereotype that I absolutely fucking hate, because I identify, in part at this point, as a male feminist. But anyway, this still didn't help me understand why boys are broken. What do we got next? Quote, the language of masculinity is hopelessly entwined with sexuality, and the language of sexuality is hopelessly entwined with power, agency, and self-worth. I mean, I guess you can tie up masculinity and sexuality. I mean, there's a case to be made for that, but it can also be tied up with tons of other factors. And I swear to God, these univariate analyses coming out of feminism is getting really fucking tired, and this particular shit is getting really Freudian. And this guy, it sounds like armchair psychology to me. Anyway, quote, so men and boys before that don't have language for modes of expression that don't readily conform to traditional standards. To step outside those norms is to take a risk most of us are afraid to take. As a result, a lot of guys spend their lives terrified. I mean, which traditional standards are we talking about? What norms? Be more specific, man. Are you saying that men are afraid of becoming more feminine? Or that they're afraid that the environment around them is becoming more feminine? You're fucking shouting into the ether, man. But don't worry, I got something planned a little later that we'll go over to discuss this. Quote, we're terrified of being viewed as something other than men. We know ourselves to be men, but don't know how to be our whole selves. A lot of us, me included, either shut off or experience deep shame or rage, or all three. Again, men are terrified. Dude, you're circling back to a previous point and has no real effect. I do find it interesting, however, that you shifted this paradigm from a collective they to a collective we when referring to men. You're also right to claim a lot rather than all or men, but then you fuck it all up. I do not feel the same way you do about any of this. And you do not speak for or about me, personally. I'm not afraid of whatever the fuck it is you're talking about. Women's success? My own masculine role in society? What the fuck are you even talking about? Fuck it. Let's carry this home. What else we got? Even talking about this topic invites ridicule because it's so scary for most men and women. Men are adrift, and nobody is talking about it, and nobody's doing anything about it, and it's killing us. Now this I can see. Men's issues are often swept under the rug because privilege, oppression, patriarchy, or whatever. How about we stop invading spaces designed for boys to bond with other boys in a healthy way? How about we stop treating boys in school like they're defective girls because they like rough and tumble play and are typically more high energy? How about we try to improve the quality of the positive masculine role model and keep them in the fucking house? I mean, some forms of masculinity are toxic, but others are extremely noble. You know, feminist theory likes to talk about the social influences young girls receive to place heavy expectations on them. And one thing that doesn't get talked about a lot is that girls don't hold the monopoly on shit like this. So let's look at how I was raised to view the masculine ideal. We often hear about competitiveness, dominance, strength, yada yada yada, as negative characteristics of men. Even though they're not, don't have to be negative. But what about images of valiant men standing against insurmountable odds, bombarding us throughout our lives? You know, men often face supreme adversity to achieve a goal. And some men even literally walk into hell to save the people they love. Literally. Fucking walk into hell in some stories. You know, what about all these really common stories that we have lately about, you know, brave leaders who manage to bring together unlikely alliances, solve problems with intelligence and significant amount of skill. It's hard work. Or fuck, man, what about even the men who lay down their life and pay the ultimate price to give up their life to save humanity altogether? These are archetypes. These are tropes that exist in the masculine role that are really positive. Some people might call them stupid, but they're positive. It all doesn't have to be fucking toxic. You know, we all have the capacity for atrocity, or the capacity for valiance inside of us as men. Boys are by nature constructive and destructive. If you watch a little boy, he'll build a block tower, then knock the motherfucker right down. It's up to us as a society how we want to cultivate one or the other. Do we continue to tell boys that they're broken and terrible and guilty and oppressive by virtue of their genitals and levels of testosterone? Or do we teach them that being a boy is okay? Do we help to nurture the constructive, creative, problem-solving nature that most boys possess? You know, this week we saw the worst in the world, but we also saw its counterpoint in the same event. You know, we saw some fuckhead mow down a bunch of people, but then you got Aaron Feiss, gave his life to shield students from a hail of gunfire. He's dead now, but a lot of people are alive because he's dead. Chris Hickson, same thing, charged headlong toward gunfire in an effort to save lives and was killed in the process. Scott Beagle was killed attempting to get students into a classroom out of harm's way. And then Cadet Peter Wang was 15 years old, and he was gunned down holding open a door so that his fellow classmates could get out of harm's way. He threw himself in that mess so his classmates could get out. He's 15. These men are now rightly being venerated as heroes, and people are alive today because they unwaveringly chose to place themselves in harm's way to protect other people. You don't get to tell me that these men were broken, because in their courage and their sacrifice and just what it takes to do that, we saw everything that a, quote, traditionally masculine man should be. People like Michael Ian Black can keep hating themselves if they like. I'll try to live up to this example. I became a male feminist activist in college. I was hit with the old common thing, well, do you believe in equality between men and women? I'm like, sure. And they're like, well, then you're a feminist. I was like, all right, fuck it. I guess I'll be a feminist. And I got pretty serious about it. Unfortunately, after college, I started doing independent research. And the face of just social justice in the real world is just not what I was taught in my little academic bubble. The fact is that the science and ideas that I found fascinating have been perverted by an ignorant, radical, and loud minority of activists that would rather push everyone else down than pull themselves up. If, quote, boys are broken is the desired response from male feminist allies, and I'm afraid I can no longer call myself one. The mainstream feminist narrative focuses too little on individuals and too much on collectivism. Intersectionality has become a club with which to beat and silence people, rather than the multivariate analysis tool that I thought it was. I, unfortunately, cannot honestly remain a part of this ideology. And that's really all I have to say. Hopefully the next video will be a little more upbeat. I'm going to try to get out one a week. Leave some feedback. Let me know what you think. Fucking subscribe, upvote, downvote, comment, whatever the fuck tickles your scrotum. I'm just trying to look for feedback. How do you like it?